Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Moonraker, starring Roger Moore, Lois Chiles, Michael Lonsdale, Richard Kiel, Bernard Lee, Desmond Llewellyn, and Lois Maxwell, and directed by Lewis Gilbert. Now, I remember watching this before, and for some reason I just remember at the end he goes to space. That's all I remember about this movie. But what do I know about it? Let's get into this movie, shall we? We open the movie with an airplane setting off Moonraker, which is a rocket ship, and as it takes off, the airplane explodes, and returned by Bernard Lee as Moneypenny, returned by Lois Maxwell if 007 is back from his mission. James Bond, returned by Roger Moore, gets on a plane fight until Jaws, returned by Richard Kiel, pushes him off, and the plane and Jaws lands at the circus, and this is an opener just made me laugh like out of control. It's that funny in a painful kind of way. James gets to California to go to the place where the Moonraker is built, and the land of Hugo Drax, played by Michael Lonsdale, and arrives at his home, and Drax feeds his two dogs, and it drove me nuts that he didn't tell the dogs to eat until the end of the scene. It just made me crazy. I don't know what to tell you. James is introduced to Dr. Holly Goodhead, played by Lois Chiles, as she shows him around the Moonraker, and goes through a little bit of the training until the instructor makes James go too quick while on the phone with Drax. And how could she be distracted while Drax's henchman is trying to kill James, which is obvious, like an obvious Bond villain cliche. As for Holly, I like her better than Triple X from last time, so that's an improvement. Later on, they run into each other in Venice, Italy, and I'm liking her as a Bond girl, to be honest. I'm not going to lie there. We get a boat chase around Venice, Italy, and James getting his boat on land, which was way too silly, particularly since he drives it on land, where millions of people were standing, which was a real problem, even in other movies like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And I'm having problems with it in that movie, and I'm having problems with it in this movie. James arrives in Rio and sees someone's following him, and arrives at the hotel and meets her and takes him to a party, and next thing you know, he's inside a club, and we see Jaws finds him and almost kills the girl until James comes in and fights him until some partiers drag Jaws away from them. And it is great to see Jaws here. Unfortunately, he's not as fun as last time. The movie I thought was too silly for a Bond film and not as fun as the first two Roger Moore films. James and Jaws have a fight on the far righter, and this is how silly the whole movie is becoming. I wanted to turn it off at this point, but I had to continue for the show. Otherwise, I would have either fallen asleep or not made it through the movie. Jaws finds a girl, and James and Holly get arrested for fighting with Jaws, and try to get them with the criminally insane asylum. But they get out, and I was checked out of this movie at this point, so what's that to you? We get some guns and weapons like a science fiction movie, and this is not the James Bond movie I know anymore. Meanwhile, James gets attacked by Jaws on a boat and by a fountain with a snake leading up to Jaws and Hugo Drax, and this movie is slowing way the hell down for me. Drax tells James his plan lift off Moonraker from the Americans, and James is trapped in Drax's lair with Holly, and that moment of the movie really made me tempted to turn off the movie, but I had 35 to 40 minutes left. But James and Holly escaped the lair, and this movie is going to be a sci-fi cliche at this point as they get in the rocket. Now they're in space in the Moonraker. James and Holly break up the cords on Moonraker, and they fire something dangerous, three things that are dangerous to Earth, and they bump into Jaws and takes them to Drax, and they launch another dangerous missile, and spacecraft comes to stop the Moonraker, and prepared the laser to fire, and what I found funny was Jaws loves his girlfriend and beats up Drax's men, and James fights with Jaws, and James makes the gravity floatable like space, and they have a laser fight like Star Wars would, which felt very silly, but the silliest part was James confronts Drax, and Drax grabs a space gun, and James shoots Drax with the palm of his hand. It was just laughable. The rocket explodes, and James and Holly get the hell out of there on time. Meanwhile, Jaws and his girlfriend find each other, and it turns out he can talk, barely. And that was ruinous of this movie, like Tyler Mean ruined X-Men, and same with Ray Park. They shoot the 3 dangerous rockets, and they smooch up the storm at the end of the day. Oh my god. Let's get to the rating, shall we? I'll give this movie a 1.8 out of 10. Perhaps one of the worst James Bond movies I've seen, and the fact that this is a sci-fi cliche is beyond laughable. I do like Holly as a Bond girl, but the execution is done very poorly, and one of the silliest movies I've seen in all my life. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with For Your Eyes Only. And until next time, the name's Bond. James Bond.